Guest thinks. As I said, he's the host of the Locked On 49ers pod, and he has been a professional defensive back as well. Eric Crocker with us. What do you think, Eric? The 49ers got a shot, as this anonymous executive thinks, against the Philadelphia Eagles?
Yeah, you always got a shot, man. That's why they call it any given Sunday.
What do they have to
now,
do? Yeah.
Having to go on the road, enemy territory, playing against an experienced team, that's tough. And, I'm excited to see how the 49ers, line up to the challenge for that one.
How would you say, and I know obviously the deck in many ways does appear stacked against the 49ers, but what would you say stands out to you as far as how the 49ers do match up well with the Eagles here or there?
Well, I think the 49ers match up well because, once Kyle has a beat on what the opposing team is doing and they get in the rhythm, I mean, it's a well-oiled machine offensively. And I think the tough thing with Seattle was, they were able to play man coverage when needed, and they were really sticky, eliminated yards after catch. They were contesting everything. And when they played zones, they did a really good job with their zone eyes, being able to play off and, rally to throws that were underneath. And that was very challenging to the 49ers. So, I think when you look at the Philadelphia Eagles, I think they have some good guys, in the secondary. I really like the cornerback, the nickelback from Iowa.
Deshaun Cooper.
Gosh. Yeah, Deshaun, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I really like Cooper DeJean when he was coming out, and I thought that's who the 49ers were going to take. And it made a lot of sense because, 49ers had Jimmy Ward for a lot of years. And Cooper DeJean, I think a lot of people wanted him to be this outside cornerback. And I was like, nah, he's not that. But if you put him in nickel, I think he's a hell of a football player. And I think that's what we've seen so far with the Eagles. So he's a guy that you may have to try to stay away from a little bit because he's a playmaker. But aside from that, I think some of the other guys, you can kind of get at them a little bit. I think the big thing is going to be how does Kyle Shanahan attack the linebackers? Because I think when we see him have the most success, it's a lot of putting defenders and specifically linebackers in conflict, and he does an amazing job of that. So how well can he do that against the Philly linebackers? And I think that's an area they excel. Another thing I think the 49ers got to figure out how to do well and be more consistent at is running the ball. Mm-hmm. They ran the ball extremely well against the Colts, who were actually a good run defense. And they got DeForest Buckner back. So, to be able to accomplish that against them and then run the ball extremely well against the Bears, I was thinking like, okay, 49ers are rocking and rolling. And then they just got stifled against the Seahawks. So I guess a lot of it depends on which 49ers team shows up and really how they, match up against each other.
Hey, E, first of all, we got to give love some E head coach of Stagg High School as well, making the playoffs 8-3 this past year. E, Dante Whitner has been very, very critical of the defensive backfield, especially when it comes to the safety play, Jair Brown and Malik Mustafa at times. What's your take on them so far? You being a corner playing that defensive backfield, what's your thoughts on how they've played and just the lack of tackling by Jair Brown over the last couple of weeks?
Oh, man. So I'll start with Jair Brown. This is a guy, he's a veteran now. And for a guy who took the ball away a lot at Penn State, right? So this is a guy, he went to junior college for 2 years, then went to Penn State for a couple years. At Penn State, nobody during that time had more interceptions in the nation than Jair Brown. So this is someone who is used to playing and taking the ball away. But I just haven't seen that guy, especially this year. And sometimes when you start getting beat, you want to get that last play out of your brain, but that may be affecting him. I'm not seeing a guy playing confident, and I don't see a guy that's triggering, right? Like he played with anticipation at Penn State. And I think since he got into the league, there's been so much up and down with his play. At one time, getting benched for a guy named Logan Ryan. Logan Ryan was partying on a cruise and had to come and work out for the Niners and got signed, and they played him over Jair Brown. So that kind of shows you how his play has really been up and down. Obviously, that was like his rookie year or second year in the league. But since then, I don't think it's gotten much better. And I think at this point, you would like to see it. The confidence looks gone to me. And I was watching him specifically on that 3rd and 17 run that resulted in the first down that really kind of broke the 49ers back. man, watch Jair Brown again on that play. Passive. And I'm sitting there watching like, what are you waiting on? You got to trigger. You got to run the alley. We need you to make that tackle. So I think there's just been a lot of hesitancy from him, specifically. When I look at the other safety, he's playing inconsistent up and down, but you would assume that was going to be the case, right? A guy who, Mustafa played a lot his rookie year, second year, okay, comes in dealing with an injury to the ACL, has to recover from that, then he finally plays. There's been some up and downs, and I think a lot of people are going to focus on the coverage stuff, where he's never been a true coverage safety. He's a guy that hits. You do get more missed tackles on guys who play like him, right? Kind of like this fast, aggressive mentality. You'll get some missed tackles, but there's also a lot of tackles at or behind the line of scrimmage that I think people kind of dismiss, and I think he does a good job of that. So in an ideal world, I need a combination of guys, right? Like, okay, I want the hitter. I also need a coverage guy. And I think when Robert Saleh looks at when his team was best, man, he had Jimmy Ward and Jaquiski Tartt, and they were interchangeable in a sense, but we always knew when it came to coverage, Jimmy Ward was the coverage guy, and Tartt was the guy that was really going to get dirty. Jimmy Ward really did both, but I think 49ers are missing that. They're missing that kind of tandem. They're kind of chasing it, but those were highly drafted guys. Jimmy Ward was a first-round pick. Tartt out of Samford University was a second-round pick, a high second-round pick. Those guys were highly drafted. Where are the guys being drafted that the 49ers are playing out there right now? And I'm not saying you can't outplay your draft stock, right? We've seen that with Brock Purdy, clearly. But for a lot of guys, it kind of like holds a little bit more true. And I think that's what we're seeing from the safeties. Not seeing the playmaking ability, and you're definitely seeing a lack of consistency.
Eric Crocker with us, host of Locked On 49ers Pod, and we appreciate your time. We'll let you go on this one. You mentioned the running game. They'd had some success against the Bears and the Colts and then fell flat against the Seahawks. How much of that has to do with the absence of Trent Williams, in your view?
I think that's huge.
Yeah.
I do think that's huge. We saw Pleasant come in and do well, in the previous game, but missing Big Trent, especially when you're playing against the number one defense in the league, you need your guys.
Yeah.
And it wasn't only hurting them in the run game; it hurt them in the passing game as well. The Seahawks were able to play as aggressive as they wanted, and Brock Purdy, again, another guy, played extremely well. Really since he came back from his injury, but man, he was very uncomfortable in that Seahawks game, and I'm watching, and I don't even know an area where he could have done better.
Mm-hmm.
It was extremely difficult on him. So, how do you get that better? Oh, well, I need my all-pro future Hall of Fame left tackle out there. So hopefully he's playing in the divisional round game, in the wild card game. I was hoping he played in week 18, 49ers win that game, and then now he gets to rest during the bye week. Yeah. Obviously it didn't work out that way, and now the 49ers got to go on the road. Hope he's healthy enough. But Philadelphia Eagles, that's a good football team, a well-coached football team, and they're going to make things a little difficult on the 49ers.
One more before we let you go. Eric Kendricks is going to get the start at middle linebacker. Tatum Bethune groin has caused him to be out for the rest of the season. It sounds like it will be him 50-50 according to Kyle Shanahan. D. Winters may or may not be there, so it may be Eric Kendricks and Curtis Robinson of caliber. Speak to Eric Kendricks coming back the last couple of weeks, getting into football shape. Can you get up to speed this fast, playoffs in your mind, as a former player, 2-3 weeks and be ready to go, to compete against the likes of a Saquon Barkley?
So I'll give a little bit of an example. All right, obviously I coach high school football, definitely not the NFL or that kind of level. But me, I'm not as athletic as I once was, not even close. I can barely run. I can't jump. I can barely jump over a quarter at this point in my life, right? But I can get out there and I can play, 7-on-7, or I can get out in team drills and play cornerback because the game has slowed down so much mentally for me, right? So I'm playing out here with these kids and I'm jumping routes and I'm doing certain things because I'm kind of seeing things happen before it actually happens. Kendricks is a veteran. And I think for the younger guys who clearly probably have more athleticism than he has at this point in his career, Bethune, he's, triggering, doing some really good things. But now, when you have a guy like Eric Kendrick, at least you get that veteran experience. He has played a ton of football. So you have to kind of bank on that and bank on, maybe he's not 100% the Kendricks that the 49ers were going to sign a year or so ago and what he was even, 4 or 5 years ago. But he is a guy that can definitely help the 49ers in this pinch that they currently are in. You need a veteran guy that truly understands how the NFL works and understands what his keys are and what his coverage responsibilities are. And I'd assume at this point in his career he has played in a lot of different schemes. So I think he'll be ready.
Well, that's good news. Thanks, Coach. We appreciate your time. I hope to talk to you again soon. Enjoy the game.
All right, thanks for having me on, guys.
All right, Eric Crocker, Locked On 49ers Pod. When we come right back,